Welcome to Algorithmic Arguments. I'm your host, the Orchestrator. Tonight, we tackle a question that sparked fierce debate and raised fundamental concerns about justice, compassion, and the rule of law. Are ICE deportations of illegal aliens an essential tool for maintaining national security and upholding immigration laws? Or are they a draconian measure that tears families apart and undermines human dignity? Joining me to explore this complex issue are Judge Harold Hal Pemberton, with his expertise in constitutional law and judicial philosophy, Senator Diana Thornton, bringing her experience in policy analysis and institutional governance, Reverend James, Jimmy Whitfield, offering a moral perspective grounded in Protestant theology and community organizing, and Gary Plotkin, who's navigated the complexities of bureaucracy and property rights. Over the next hour, we'll dissect the arguments for and against ICE deportations, challenge assumptions, and seek common ground. Let's dive into this critical conversation.
The court observes that the issue of ICE deportations of illegal aliens sits at the intersection of national security, human rights, and constitutional obligations. As a jurist, I must weigh these competing interests against the backdrop of our laws and precedents. The weight of the evidence suggests that while Congress has plenary authority over immigration, the manner in which deportations are carried out must comport with due process and the Eighth Amendment's prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment. I'd like to hear a more nuanced discussion from my opponent about how to balance these interests without undermining the rule of law or sacrificing compassion. Counselor, please proceed.
With all due respect to those who advocate for a more lenient approach, I firmly believe that ICE deportations of illegal aliens are a necessary component of our nation's immigration enforcement strategy. As we consider the impact on national security and public safety, it's crucial to acknowledge that nearly 70% of individuals apprehended by ICE have committed serious crimes or pose a significant threat to public safety. Effective governance requires balancing compassion with pragmatism. Unchecked borders undermine both. History has shown us that comprehensive immigration reform must include robust enforcement measures. Simply providing a pathway to citizenship without securing our borders would only incentivize further illegal crossings, straining our social services and jeopardizing American lives.
Senator Diana Thornton's claim that nearly 70% of individuals apprehended by ICE have committed serious crimes or pose a significant threat to public safety may benefit from citing specific sources for verification.
I appreciate Senator Thornton's concern for public safety, but we must approach this issue with compassion and facts. While it's true that some individuals apprehended by ICE have committed serious crimes, the data suggests that the vast majority are nonviolent offenders or pose no significant threat. According to a 2020 report by the American Immigration Council, citing ICE's own data, only about 11% of deportations involved individuals with serious criminal convictions. We must balance our duty to protect citizens with our moral obligation to treat all people with dignity and respect. As a man of faith, I'm reminded that Scripture calls us to love our neighbors, regardless of their country of origin or immigration status. Let's ensure our policies reflect this biblical imperative.
Let's focus on the nuances of compassion and enforcement in this discussion, exploring how different perspectives balance these aspects.
I'd like that noted for the record. Reverend Whitfield's reliance on a 2020 report is indeed outdated. As a matter of fact, let's examine the most recent data from ICE, which indicates that deportations have actually decreased under current policies. Let the record show that according to a 2022 DHS report, there were approximately 438,000 removals in 2021, down from over 800,000 in 2019. Procedurally speaking, if we're going to cite statistics, we should at least be working with numbers that reflect our current reality. With respect to the chair, I move that we consider more recent data before making any sweeping declarations on this topic.
As we pivot into the next round, I want to highlight Senator Thornton's assertion that ICE deportations may be counterproductive to national security. Her point about incentivizing clandestine reentry sparked a crucial debate. Coming up, Reverend Whitfield will present his moral case against mass deportations. It's sure to add another layer of complexity. If you're finding this discussion as thought-provoking as I am, subscribe so you don't miss the next round's fiery exchanges and expert analysis on algorithmic arguments.
I appreciate the call for evidence-based discussion. Facts must guide our moral deliberations. Senator Thornton, I'm glad you provided a more nuanced figure of 40% with prior felony convictions. It's essential to acknowledge that many individuals face complex circumstances leading them to migrate. As I reflect on Christian teachings and social justice, we can't ignore human dignity in policymaking. While Mr. Plotkin's emphasis on verifiable sources is crucial, let's not overlook the humanitarian crisis unfolding at our borders. The Bible teaches us to care for the stranger and vulnerable. Deportations without due process or compassion can be cruel and unusual punishment. I'd like to propose exploring community-based alternatives that balance public safety with empathy. What if we invested in reintegration programs, job training, and social services? This approach could reduce recidivism rates while upholding human dignity.
Reverend Whitfield's proposal for community-based alternatives requires further examination of feasibility and potential impact on public safety.
I appreciate my colleague's emphasis on empirical evidence. As an academic and legislator, I concur that substantiated claims are essential for informed policymaking. In response to Reverend Whitfield's request for sources and Judge Pemberton's insistence on verification, according to a 2020 report by the Center for Immigration Studies, which analyzed ICE data from FI 2017-2019, approximately 63% of apprehended individuals had prior criminal convictions or indicators suggesting public safety concerns. This isn't simply about percentages. These figures signify real human lives and consequences when stringent measures aren't taken. Given current debates around clandestine reentry incentivization due to enforcement practices, prioritizing up-to-date research indeed will sharpen discussions on humanitarian obligations versus practical realities surrounding border control. Hence, advocating community-based alternatives alongside deportation mechanisms strikes me as judicious next steps in navigating these complexities effectively.
Let's focus on the intersection of policy, human rights, and national security concerns.
As we conclude this discussion, I'd like to synthesize the key points raised and offer a final reflection. The Court observes that the debate has centered on balancing national security, human rights, and constitutional obligations. While Senator Thornton and others have emphasized the role of ICE deportations in maintaining public safety, Reverend Whitfield's compassion-driven perspective reminds us that the vast majority of apprehended individuals pose no significant threat. I've taken note of Gary Plotkin's reference to decreased deportations under current policies, a fact that warrants further examination. The weight of the evidence suggests that a nuanced approach is necessary, one that takes into account both the need for effective immigration enforcement and the imperative to protect human rights. As I consider this issue through the lens of my 26 years on the bench, I'm reminded that our Constitution demands that we balance competing interests with care and thoughtfulness.
As we conclude this debate, I'd like to summarize my key points and reflect on the discussion. Throughout our conversation, I've maintained that ICE deportations are a crucial aspect of our nation's immigration enforcement strategy, directly impacting national security and public safety. The data supports my position. Nearly 70% of individuals apprehended by ICE have indeed committed serious crimes or pose a significant threat to our communities. While I appreciate Reverend Whitfield's emphasis on compassion, I must respectfully disagree with his characterization of those apprehended by ICE. Furthermore, I'd like to challenge Gary Plotkin's assertion that deportations have decreased under current policies. This trend may be influenced by various factors, including resource allocation and policy shifts. In closing, I urge my colleagues to consider the evidence and prioritize our nation's safety. Targeted deportations are not only necessary, but also a responsible approach to immigration enforcement.
As we draw this discussion to a close, I'd like to reflect on the key points raised and reiterate my stance. While I understand concerns about national security and public safety, I firmly believe that compassion and facts must guide our approach to ICE deportations. The data suggests that most individuals apprehended by ICE are nonviolent offenders or pose no significant threat. In fact, studies have shown that the vast majority of deportees do not have a serious criminal record. As a man of faith, I'm reminded of Matthew 25 verse 35. For I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. Let's prioritize empathy and evidence-based policy, ensuring that our actions align with American values of justice and mercy. By doing so, we can create a more humane and effective immigration system that balances competing interests while upholding the dignity of all individuals.
Let the record show that I've been patiently listening to my fellow debaters, but I must address a critical oversight. As a matter of fact, Senator Thornton cited nearly 70% of individuals apprehended by ICE having committed serious crimes or posing a significant threat. I'd like that noted for the record. She didn't provide credible sources to substantiate this claim. Procedurally speaking, we can't just accept assertions without evidence. With respect to the chair, I move to request clarification on this point. According to recent data from ICE, deportations have decreased under current policies. I'd also like to highlight Reverend Whitfield's emphasis on compassion and facts. Unfortunately, we've seen a lack of factual rigor in some arguments. I'd appreciate it if we could focus on verifiable information going forward.
As we conclude tonight's debate on ICE deportations of illegal aliens, let's revisit the most striking moments. Reverend Whitfield passionately argued that these deportations undermine the moral fabric of our society, citing the importance of compassion and empathy towards those seeking refuge. Judge Pemberton countered with a focus on national security and the rule of law, emphasizing the need for enforcement. Senator Thornton walked a middle ground, advocating for comprehensive reform. Reverend Whitfield's nuanced approach earned him today's top score, 15 points. His thoughtful balance of heart and policy resonated with our audience. I thank Reverend Whitfield, Judge Pemberton, Senator Thornton, and Gary Plotkin for their rigorous discussion. To our viewers, if you found this debate stimulating, please do us a favor, like this video, subscribe to Algorithmic Arguments, and hit that notification bell. Your support fuels more thought-provoking conversations. Until next time, when we'll tackle another pressing issue, good night and keep exploring.